We have another cash question, but more towards retirement from S. Tom that got submitted. It says, I am on step 7 of the FOO. I have $375K in CDs and high yield savings. I retire from the military in 4 years unless promoted, at which point I plan to pay cash for a $500K home. Should I invest my cash? So similar, but different situation because he has the 4-year timeline and some goals. What would you say to S. Tom?
It was 4 years, not 3 years? I want to
He
make sure I
said
heard it
4
right.
years
4
until he
years.
retires from the military unless promoted. There was that caveat.
He said 4 years till he retires. I'm assuming that what we are going to operate under here is the idea that when he retires, he's going to buy the house. And he said he's going to buy how much of a house?
$500K.
$500,000 house. He currently
In
has
cash.
$375,000. So he's got, 4 years to close the gap on being able to save an additional $125,000, assuming that this does not include his emergency fund, assuming that this is outside of what he would have for emergency expenses. Here's my opinion, and I'll be curious if you agree with this. If you know the number that is going to be required for you to buy the house and pay for it in cash, and you know where you are now, even though 4 years seems like a long time, I'm going to argue that's relatively short term. And it's certainly a finite timeline if you know that's going to happen. What I would hate to see happen is all of a sudden you say, you know what, I'm going to invest these dollars. I'm going to get them working for me. And man, right there in the 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 months leading up to you needing the cash to be able to buy the house, all of a sudden, that's when we start to see some market weakness. That's when we start to enter into the next downturn. That's when we see a 20% pullback. And all of a sudden, that $500,000 that you needed to be able to buy the house is not there readily available for you just because of market circumstances. So my opinion is, I think putting them in CDs is great. CDs are paying relatively high rates right now. You could even potentially, if you're nervous about rates falling, you could lock in longer term CDs between now and that 4-year period. But I do not think that this money should be invested since it is a finite timeline. It's not yet fully funded. Agree, disagree, want to fight?
Well, I think we need more information. And the fact that, because Tom left this pretty open. I love that he's in step 7 of the financial order of operations. And I remind you guys, go to moneyguy.com/resources. Download your free copy, because what step 7 is, that hyper accumulation stage, is where instead of, you think about steps 1 through 6, you're building your financial foundation. You're also taking advantage of all the tax benefits that are out there. It's kind of streamlined to maximize all those opportunities. Step 7 is that first step where you're thinking about, yes, now that I'm at this point of saving and investing for the future, how am I actually going to use this money? And that's exactly, you're in the perfect place, Tom, to kind of figure this out. But step 7 is, you're trying to figure out, because you said something. You said, I'm going to retire from the military. When I hear that, that means that I'm assuming you've hit the 20-year mark at least. So you have a little bit of homework to do. You first need to figure out, okay, with the pension I'll get from the military, where I'm going to live, what does my retirement look like? Am I ahead of the curve, behind the curve, or right where I need to be? Because instead of you paying cash for the house, you might need to only put down 20% and then fortify your investments, but so that you actually do reach all those retirement goals that you have. Now, if you do the exercise and you realize, I've got this great pension that's going to be coming in, it's going to be more money coming in, plus the job or whatever I'm doing, with my time after I leave the military, I'm going to be fat and happy. I'm post 45, so my army of dollars are just not exponentially growing because of compounding growth and the opportunity cost of that as much as they would have been. Then let's pay cash for the house. But don't just assume. I have a client right now that's been struggling through an employment issue, and we have a meeting coming up in the next few days, and I know it's a struggle, but there's this psychological thing where they're like, we just need to pay off our mortgage because my life would be so much better if I had this paid off mortgage. But the thing is, I know that mortgage rate is right at 3%.
Super low.
And I know, triage wise, there's a lot bigger things we need to be working through. But the psychological thing that they're thinking is I'll just pay off this mortgage. Make sure you're doing the actual two parts of it. Yes, there's a psychological component of the happiness of paying off your house or living in a debt-free house, but make sure the math also supports that so you don't get yourself in a situation where the bridge that's going to actually fund your future or the things that's going to make your life as stress-free as possible, if you dump that into the paid-for house prematurely, you might be surprised to find out it's not everything you thought it was if you need that money to sustain you, to provide for your retirement. So don't skip that. It sounds like you're going to be in a great place because you have this pension coming in, but just make sure you do the work. This is exactly the case study of why we came up with the course and the tool of Know Your Number. If you go to learn.moneyguy.com, you can actually figure out and do the exercise to figure out you're ahead of the curve, behind the curve, are right where you need to be so you can maximize that step 7 of the financial order of operations.
It's great.